Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time of the day you are listening to this. You are welcome to the Volatile Times with Daniel. Let's dial that back. Let's dial that back. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time of the day you are listening to this. And you are welcome to the award winning podcast, Volatile Times with Daniel. And I am your jolly good host, Daniel Briggs Adisa. Hey, it's the new year, it's 2025. How are you doing? This is our first introduction to each other, right? It's been a while. I know, it's really been a while. I had a bunch of things that piled up, so I couldn't focus on the podcast. The podcast had to be sacrificed for all of that. But hey, I am here now, and this year is going to be a wonderful year. But let's talk about last year, Shabby. What the hell was the ending of last year? I don't know about you, but Christmas for me was not dirty. Okay, Christmas for me was absolutely boring. It wasn't totally boring. I had my sister around. I had one or two people over. So we kind of had fun towards the end of the day, but the entire season, the entire Christmas season, I wasn't feeling it. I really was not feeling the Christmas joy or the Christmas fun at all. And I know this is not just me alone. This is a lot of people. A lot of us were not feeling the Christmas spirit, okay? A lot of us were not feeling this Christmas spirit. Nigeria was Nigeria in the world is going batshit crazy, as it always is, but it feels like as if this one feels personal. I don't know about you, but it feels personal in a sense. Why is it around this period that the world is trying to go astray or awry or whatever the word is? But I am glad that we are here. I'm glad that we are alive. Yeah. Things might seem hopeless for a bunch of people right now, maybe you also, but if there's one thing I know is that things do not always remain hopeless. Things always change. Sometimes they change for the worse. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna boo anybody. I am not here to sponsor anybody's Delulu. Not even mine sometimes. But maybe we should be doing that a lot more this year because I don't know about you, but it feels like as if we are in World War III. And not to get all political, but oh my God, Jesus needs to come now. Anyway, today's episode is not about how terrible December was or how terrible the world is currently. Today's episode is simply just to say, welcome to the new year. I am so glad to be doing the new year with you again. And, I have a bunch of things lined up for this year. But one thing I have noticed about myself is I will not stick to those plans. I will always have a content plan for episodes and stuff like that, but I never stick to them. I barely ever stick to them because I will have maybe 5 to 6 episodes planned out. I have them thought out and everything. Some of them already have the scripts written for. Some of them are going to be audio essays, that kind of thing. And then I just find myself getting distracted. I'm talking about something else. And those projects, despite the fact that the scripts and essays might have been completed, I just forget about them. And then by the time I remember them, it's it feels very inappropriate to talk about this now. And so sometimes what some of the things I posted last year, some of the things I spoke about on the podcast last year were things that were in the work a year ago. And I think for me, it's because I strongly believe in always giving my best. Even this episode that I'm doing, I am purposefully doing it hours to the time I'm going to be uploading this, which is going to be hell to edit and everything. But hey, we are superhuman beings. And the reason I'm doing this is because even though I believe that good content, good things actually take time, I've been working on an essay called Purpose is a Bargain since last year. And every single time I keep going back to the essay, reading through, because it's kind of like me just curating what my thoughts about purpose is and how we should approach thinking about purpose in the very first place. And I find myself critiquing myself and, revising some things. And I'm just saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep working on it for as long as I deem it necessary to be working on it. So you might not see anything about it for a while. It was part of the content lineup I had for last year. But hey, see? But this year, I am going to be way much more relaxed. with how I bring out content. I've been doing that a lot more over the years, but this year we are going to see a lot more of me relaxed. I'm just going to be talking. There's probably going to be one or two audio essays here and there, but not going to be a lot. I'm just going to post most of my essays on my Substack. In case you do not know I have a Substack, go over there and subscribe to my Substack. It's titled The Cabinet of Introspection. You'll probably find a link in the description below. I just write about, how we see the world, or how I see the world from an introspective point of view about my experiences and conversations I've had with people and different things like that. So yeah, the first issue for this year, because I only post once a month over there, the first issue for this year, I think, is going to be coming out around the 17th of January. So if you are listening to this before the 17th of January, go over there, subscribe so that you get it on time. If you are listening after, still go over there, subscribe and read. Okay, and let me know what you think. But without wasting more time than I've already wasted, I want to do a recap of last year. I probably should have done this immediately it happened, but life lived. Last year, I actually won an award for the podcast. It's the APVA Awards in the podcast category of personal/self-development. And I won, Podcast King of the Year, APVA 2024 winner, which is it's such a joyful thing for me because the podcast has been up and this is my baby. This has been my space to be honest about a bunch of things, to simply just talk. So I never really thought of like winning awards or anything like that. Like, I always wanted to like give it a bit more visibility and reach, but I never took it to like some sort of like business or something like that. So to see it get recognition despite my lackadaisical attitude towards like marketing and promoting and all that kind of stuff is a thing of joy, because it means that there is value here. And, we could have a conversation about validation. And do you need external validation? I would argue yes. Everybody needs external validation on some level. But, it's just seeing it get validated in that sort of way gave me a lot of hope, and it gave me a lot of encouragement, especially during a year that it just seemed like, since the pandemic, it just seemed like as if things had just been getting wrong and worse. And last year was like, last year was going, So, that is one thing. And let's go through the Spotify Wrapped for the podcast. I'm actually just going through it for the first time. So I don't know what I'm going to be seeing here. But I'm doing this wrap together with you on the podcast because, I just want us together to see what we are, who we are as a community, and, what we've achieved so far according to Spotify. All right. So let's get into this. So it says fans were really loving the show in 2024. It breaks down the listeners age into two major categories. 18 to 24 is 25% of the listeners, and the majority of the listeners to the podcast are actually between the ages of 25 to 29, which is my age demographic. I am very surprised because the actual analytics usually shows something different. It shows a very wide range. In the full analytics for the podcast, the age ranges actually diversify a lot from between ages 16, 17 to like ages in the 50s. 27.9% of listeners are between the ages of 35 to 44. I even have like one or two listeners who are age 60 plus, which is amazing because Lord God of mercy. And when it comes to gender, it used to be evenly split before. I used to have like even split between male and female genders and then non-binary. But now I have more male listeners and more female listeners, which I don't know how that happened because the things I talk about, the way I talk about is, I never really thought it would appeal to a majority male audience, but that's really lovely to see, to be honest. So moving on, where has the podcast been? Okay. Where are the podcasts been? Who is listening? Where are you listening from? Nigeria was the top country that listened this year. As always, my Nigerian people always pulling up for me, right? Which is very surprising because I remember when I started, I had more United States listeners than Nigerian listeners, and I always like thought to myself that is it that I cannot relate to Nigerians or Nigerians cannot relate to me or something along those lines. But no, it just meant that people had to wait. I had to wait. And it says the kind of music you people like listening to is pop, rap, and Afrobeats. I'm not really a pop person, but I've been vibing with Afrobeats a lot. I'm not going to tell you who my favorite artists are, mostly because I can't remember any names right now. Sorry, brain fog. Okay. So shout out to the biggest fans for keeping this podcast at the top of its game. Apparently, I am the top 10% show for like 4 fans, which is amazing. I'm the top 5 show for 4 fans, and I'm the top 1% show for like 3 fans. Okay. Hallelujah. You guys listen to this thing like 2.1 times more than anybody else. Whosoever it is you are, if you belong in that category, you know yourself. If you belong in that category, you are the star of the show, okay? You are the one who is actually sponsoring this podcast. It's not me that is doing the promoting. You are the one that is doing the promoting. Okay, so now we are in the section where it says, what kind of creator am I? Is doing the calculations and everything. Apparently, I have really long episodes, which makes me a non-conformist, which I think a bunch of my friends will agree with that. I think a bunch of people who know me will agree with that I, on some level, embody the sentiment of non-conforming. But personally, I feel like I conform a lot. I just have really diversifying opinions and thoughts about a lot of things. And I'm not necessarily scared to share them. As you see, I mean, the last episode before this one was titled, Should We Ask for Forgiveness from Victims? Like, is it justified to even ask for forgiveness in the very first place? And I kind of went against a lot of Christian thoughts, even though I'm a Christian. And so I think the non-conformist tag really does apply. And it says you guys enter the conversation also. Oh my God, you gave the podcast a rating of 5 stars. I remember when this podcast started and nobody rated this podcast, even though it had listeners, nobody was rating the podcast. And I was like, is it that you people are not actually listening and people are just boo-booing me? Because I would get people who would message me on social media or people who knew my friends that would kind of like send messages indirectly about how they love the particular episode, how a particular episode related to them, how it got them thinking about this particular type of thing in a different way. And I just always thought, oh, if you liked it that much, great, for God's sake, great. But thank you for, keeping the show alive, and you're welcome for, me giving you something to talk about. And that is it for the Spotify Wrapped for podcast creators. That was amazing. It's been an amazing year so far. And I hope to do more this year. Actually, I hope to like really go in. I have absolutely no idea how to do any of that. Okay. I am just a baby boy who just likes to sit in front of his microphone and talk, or sometimes sit in front of his keyboard and just type and read whatever it is I typed out to you. So I don't know how to like make anything major. I don't know how to like get sponsors or anything like that, Patreon, whatever. But we'll figure these things out along the way, me and you together, because it's always been both of us together. We started this since 2020 during the pandemic. We've been in each other's comfort spaces, mostly I in your ear and you, in my mental space. Some of you have been in my head more than some of my friends and my family members, which is creepy to think about, but also at the same time kind of romantic when you think about it. So on the Substack, I have a whooping 37 subscribers, even though I only have like about 17 posts. The 17th post is the Happy New Year post I did, on the podcast. But like, it's really amazing because when I look at the Substack, look at the publication, the things I've written about so far, some of them are very, very deeply introspective and very personal. Take, for example, this one titled Discipline Your Parents. I remember so many people loved that one. I have a younger friend who would always ask me to like send him the link to that one again and be like, he will share it and everything. He had like 103 views or reads, right? So like that is amazing. Then I remember when I wrote Friends Are Not Enough. I think it's the one till today that still has the most comments. Friends Are Not Enough, talking about how regardless of how much we desire romance in our life, friendship also needs to be placed just as important or even much more important, because most of us in the end would never truly be satisfied in a communal sense with our lovers, with our partners, but also that for those of us who have lacked the presence of romantic love in our lives so far, friends are usually the people that we would have give us that validation, that attention, and everything. But at the same time, no matter how deep a friendship goes, they live a life separate from yours. And that is the one disadvantage that it has compared to romantic lovers, right? Romantic lovers are there with you, living life with you. But friends come to live life with you. They come from outside to live life with you, and then they will go back into their own context, right? So it's a lot. It was a lot. And then I remember one of the last ones I posted there, which was the unlisted faces of grief. The unlisted faces of grief was just explaining different it was explaining the essence of understanding what grief is in and of itself and how we fail to identify it in so many different ways. So yeah, that is it for Substack. So now let's talk about plans for this year. I have no plans. I have absolutely no plans. But I have wishes though. So let's talk about those. What do I wish to do this year with the podcast? I wish to be much more consistent as always. But at the same time, if you're a long-time listener of this podcast, you know that consistency for me is not about constantly posting episodes all the time, but it's about ensuring the quality of the conversations that I bring to you and of the topics that I get you to think of, because if I'm going to be taking up your time and taking up your mental space by being in your ear like this, I want you to have something to think about. I want you to get value from this. I want this to affect your life, not just in that minute, but also beyond it, right? So I feel like I'm going to have a lot of conversations with you this year because so much has happened and we really need to talk about a lot of things. So much is happening and we need to talk about a lot of things. Also, I am going to be launching a new podcast this year. I do not know when. I've announced this previously before, I think it was last year, but working on it got derailed, but now production has actually begun. It's titled For Literate Christians. It's a podcast where I bring Bible scholarship to you, essentially. Because I've been doing this thing over the couple of years where I've been looking at the Bible and Christian theology and beliefs much more from a scholastic and educational perspective, right? Research and all. So I want to bring that to you because I've realized that there's so much that we could learn and there's so much misconceptions that we have about the Bible. And there's a divergence a little bit from how the scholarly facts see the Bible and how the dogmatic or theological or church-based facts see the Bible. So in a way to just bring more education about the Bible, bring more education about Christian theology, and just have fun along the way personally, that's what I'm creating For Literate Christians. The very first book that we're going to be reading, and this is spoilers, the very first book that we're going to be reading on the podcast is The Satan. The format for the podcast is that one book per season, and we'll go through the book chapter by chapter. So that way we are not just rushing through things. It's not going to be like YouTube videos where, you get 30 minutes or something talking about a really large concept and then, you are left with too many questions at the end of the day. No. We'll pick a book written by a scholar, preferably, that explores a certain topic about the Bible or Christian theology. And sometimes, just how Christianity has integrated itself into society, and then we dissect it chapter by chapter, right? It just summaries chapter by chapter and everything. So yeah, you don't even have to be reading the book. I would make sure that each chapter summary gives you enough idea of what the book is talking about. So by the end of the season, it will feel like as if you've already read the book. So even if you've never read the book, you can go outside and act smart, okay? That is majorly it. Then concerning writing, I want to do more for my writing. I don't know what that will look like for now. One of the simplest things I'm going to do for my Substack is I'm going to narrate each and every single essay that I publish, which is going to be a lot because I'm a terrible narrator. But I'm going to try my best. I'm going to grow in that craft. And hopefully I hope to open up myself to more gigs and collaborations this year. I'm looking to collaborate with a couple more podcasters and just people in general life, just having conversations with people. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Like I said, I don't have any plans. I don't know shit, but it's gonna get done. I have faith. It's gonna get done. So I just wanted to update you. This isn't like a main episode. The main episode is going to be coming out in the next weekend. We are still going to stick to the 2 weekend stint, but this is just an extra episode and it's gone on long enough. It's just supposed to inform you about everything so far. But thank you so far for listening to this point. I know I've just rambled on and on and on and on. I sound very, very excited. Some part of that excitement is actually fake because, man is going through it. But yeah, I hope to have a very, very lovely and even much more engaging year with you and other people this year. So, yeah, that's it for me. If you're on Spotify, down in the comments below, tell me what you wish to do this year. I'm not asking for resolutions. I'm not asking for well-planned out goals. What are the things that you hope to achieve this year? And, let's see how we can get each other there. So, this has been Daniel Briggs Adisa, the award-winning host of the award-winning podcast, Volatile Times with Daniel podcast. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.